time. Countdown to fun.
All right. Welcome to the InsideOut Life Podcast, where each episode we hope to bring you personal growth tips, inspire a better life for you, share powerful stories, and spark you to taking brave steps forward. I'm honored to introduce today's guest, psychotherapist Shawna Akerman, and our very own Barry Samuel, InsideOut's founder and master coach, as well as myself, Amanda Carvery, wellness educator. Today's very important topic is how we can manage anxieties and trauma, as well as discover effective coping skills for challenging times. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
It's been pretty interesting times indeed, and it's just interesting to consider. And thank you for that great introduction, Amanda. What's been unique about this time, and who better to ask than, or maybe we can kind of, talk about our own experience a little bit here. And here we are on this call. That's something that's been very different. And how many people are feeling the COVID fatigue, rage?
It takes boredom to a whole new level.
That is for sure. I don't know so much if it's rage, as you say. I would say definitely fatigue, like just watching the news every now and again. It's repetitive. It's the same thing that you're hearing over and over again. So it's gotten to the point where I can only watch maybe 10 minutes of it, or maybe none at all, because you put yourself, at least myself, in those what ifs, what if this happens, what ifs, and then you send yourself in a downward spiral. So I try to not pay attention to the news as much, because I'm sure I'll hear it by somebody else, by word of mouth, by a family member or coworkers. And just, because hope is lost. Hope is lost when you watch constant negative media.
It's hard to attach yourself to the good things happening in the world, because there used to be more good in a day. Or if you had a bad day, there'd be something good at the end of the day you could do, like go to the gym, go to a friend's house, go to a movie, pick an activity to take away how you were, like any negative feelings. Now it's kind of like you're negative all day and then there's nowhere to go, so you sit in the negativity. It's harder to pick positivity. I moved into a new space March 1st and I don't have a screen. I haven't gotten a TV in this space, and it's been really refreshing not to check in. I get updates during the day and I'll check in with my educator friends or my friends who are going back to work or out in the society and the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I rely on them to give me the information, and it's really taken my anxiety down quite a bit this month, I have to say.
And even as a mental health professional, and also for myself as a coach, it's interesting to really kind of take away any shame that we may feel for getting down in these times, because we know that there's quite a bit of dependency on professionals, specifically when it comes to the health and mental health arenas, particularly in very uncertain, unsettling times, to keep it together. But we're all kind of going through this together, not to overuse that phrase. And so even for medical professionals, for leaders of government, for mental health professionals, Shawna, I would suggest to you even to extend your point out a bit, is, we all got to put the oxygen masks on ourselves. And as we're all talking about, is do the self-care, even for those who are supposed to be the steady hand for others.
Yeah. Amanda, did you want to answer that, or I can take it?
You could take it.
Self-care is imperative at this time. And when we're out of our routines, it's harder to do self-care, right? If you don't wake up the same time and you don't have your routine and you don't do check-ins, it's really hard to stay focused on the positive. As a psychotherapist, I have a group of other psychotherapists, and we check in with each other often, at least once a week. And I've been going to my own therapy regularly throughout this, because listening to people's stories and dealing with the issues they bring into my practice that's happening in their homes because of COVID, that though it's like exasperating all the things that were happening before. So our way of dealing with things has changed too. So self-care comes in more. How do you remove yourself from your family when there's nowhere to go? How do you sit in your own brain when you don't know what to do next? When there's nowhere to go um, to get a reprieve from how you're feeling. So self-care is so important. We talk about mindfulness and meditation. Well, mindfulness and meditation could be as simple like go outside and walk around the block 3 times. Take a shower in the middle of the afternoon just to do something different and shake up your day. Eat differently, cook differently, bake, join a group. There are lots of different ways for self-care, but it's so important to find something that is good for you. And if you can't, find someone in your life who's a leader and join them. So I have a girlfriend who loves to walk. Every day she gets out for an hour on her lunch break. And she says every day she texts me at 12 o'clock, let's go, I'm going. And if I don't have an appointment, and I try not to make my appointments at the time I know she's going, I join her because I won't do it on my own. I don't make it a priority for myself. I leave it till the end of the day. But it's been for me, it's been such a good break in the middle of the day and to get out of my own space, especially in the winter. I'm not a winter person, so I bought all the winter gear this year and I really put my effort into it. It was nice. It felt good.
Yeah, and to add to your point, like you said, positive distractions are the only way that we can temporarily get away from our troubling issues that are bothering us in our mind. So if that means talking to somebody, writing your journal, maybe watching a favorite comedy show or movie, or simply going for a walk, as you mentioned, just to clear your mind. And even if it has to be a moment of crying, just to release those flood of emotions and just get them off your chest, because we can only do what we can do with that is within our control.
Yeah.
Right? We can't control everything. So, you have to take matters into your own hands, take self-care, because this constant state of worrying and not knowing what's next, it's only going to be detrimental for your health, but also elevate your stress levels, and then you get nowhere.
So true. I love to dance, and before the pandemic I would go to live bands Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes even Sunday, and that really made my energy for the whole week and motivated me. Without that, it's been really difficult. So I put on concerts, live concerts on YouTube, and I dance around. I put on my disco lights and I just dance around just by myself. But it makes such a difference for me because those are the things I miss the most.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Recreating the outside world inside. Sometimes you feel like, do I really need to do that? Whenever I feel like crying, I put on music and dance because I could cry every day 3 times a day.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah. Once I feel a little bit of grief, I let it come out, and then I don't want to sit in this more than 10, 15 minutes.
Right. Rightfully so.
From you wake up in a neutral mood and you can go right down to negative like this.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I let the negative kind of come in a little bit because you got to process it and let it be. And then I'm like, okay, put on that dance music. Let's go. It's helped me for sure. I've been able to stay positive through COVID, which thank goodness, because you took away my whole world.
No, I don't blame you.
And to borrow a bit of a psychology term, locus of control, and I think that both of you have been touching on it from kind of if we look at it from the inside out perspective, and that is to know that whether we're in challenging times or we're in the pre-pandemic norm, it's ultimately up to us to build in the habits and the routines for our own self-care. So, what's been such an eye-opener and a shake-up for all of us is to know the only thing that we've been able to count on, wait for it, is that we can't count on much right now in this COVID-19 pandemic, and that, it's like count on not being able to count on something. That's the one thing that you can count on. Like when we're waiting for the announcement of the day to come down, and that's why, for all of us, we're wanting to avoid the news so we can keep it a little bit more positive that way and take back a bit of control. And I think that's been the awakening for each of us to either a micro level or in some kind of profound way. There's been some wake ups. So Shawna, I'd be interested to hear from you, like in your practice, have there been any kind of profound silver linings or adventure stories that you've heard from some of your people?
I've had a lot of, quite a few divorces, which separations, but natural separations where people were kind of hesitant to make the choices and staying together for the kids. And they realized that when they're all together, they saw the impact of their behavior consistently over time. And they realized that separating and choosing different spaces and starting to build their lives differently, but it was done with conversation rather than anger because you're stuck in the same space still. So that was one. I've had a lot of families working on flow of their home. Kids are bored, and we really try and move away from the word boredom for kids. There are so many options for them to do. We want to motivate their brains. So it's really dealing with parents and coming up with different solutions. What can you teach your kids now that they're home all the time? Can they make their own meals? Can they go to the fridge and stand in front of the fridge and say, hey, I'm hungry. What can I pick? Think about as adults, how many times we go to the fridge, we open up, they're like, there's nothing to eat, right? So it's looking at the fridge differently, how to do routines at bedtime. If you're not running from activity to activity and you don't have stresses in your life and you're not commuting, your life changes. So if your life changes, how do your routines change? When your routines change, we start to look at how does that impact? What do we like and don't like? So those are some of the really unique things. A lot of job transitions too, going back to school. I hate what I do. I like the people at my work, but now that I have to do the job itself every day, that's not so good. I had an incident in my past life as a teacher. So 2 years ago, I had an incident at the school board that really affected me and caused my anxiety and panic attacks. I couldn't go back to school. I tried in September of 2020, and it was really difficult for me to be a teacher. So I ended up taking a leave of absence to build my practice as a psychotherapist.
All right. So to touch back on your point, Shawna, I can identify with your story in that within the last 2 years, I've been at Centennial College for their fitness and health promotion program. And I made that leap after working at a law firm for like 9 years of being under like a highly stressful environment with unmanageable caseloads and unrealistic demands. And I just thought that my health was worth more than trying to handle as many cases or clients as possible. I had to take action for myself first. And I want to bring that back to others and hopefully get into workplace wellness. In terms of silver linings out of this pandemic, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my career path and where I see myself going. And I feel like more than ever, people can benefit from being more active and, taking care of their mental health, but also just being, embracing their well-being. Other silver linings in terms of friends, I've heard quite a few pregnancy announcements. But more importantly, I've just been grateful grateful for things that I am blessed with, like having a supportive group of friends and families, the opportunity to continue with school. I mean, the plan wasn't to do it virtually. I wanted to be in class and to be in person with amongst my instructors and my peers, but still having the opportunity to continue with that um, online, still having a part-time job on the side, food and a roof over my head. So I just take it one day at a time, and just remain confident that eventually we will get over and past this pandemic.
Yeah.
And these are very brave steps that the two of you have kind of modeled for others, starting before the pandemic. And it's become, I think, very clear, the message around self-care, health and wellness, pursuing your path of what aligns with your core values. I care about my community. I care about paying my bills. Of course, ultimately, I don't want to be a burnout. I don't want to have regret when I look back, and I want to, as important as anything else, is I want to have an impact on others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really rings true, and that's kind of my take and a bit of my message to people too, is like, it seems like this is one of the missing links for people, whether it's during the pandemic or pre-pandemic, is something is missing in my life. I have my goals, I have my career, but I think often people want to find a way to give back and feel like they're contributing to something more than just their career at times.
I think through the pandemic, there's been so many incredible opportunities to give back. There's been there's a group of young women who they've been rallying and fighting to get mental health support in the police in the police field, for people on the street and for first responders to have mental health support. And because of the pandemic and so many people online, that they've been able to get their message out and really get a lot of support from government for this. So that's helped them. There's been I worked for a mental health hotline. There was a few of them that I just put my name on to volunteer certain hours a day, and I gave back free to frontline workers. I did free online sessions for frontline workers, and there was huge amounts of psychotherapists that I knew who went online and volunteered their time. So there's a whole program where you deliver technology to retirement homes, and they take them for a week so that they can speak to their families and keep in touch, and someone will teach them how to go on in Zoom. There's been so many different opportunities, families getting together and supporting each other with their kids who've been at home when they are still having jobs. So there's so many silver linings. If you took this time and actually thought about gratitude, I think gratitude, what you said there, Amanda, is the biggest piece. If you can wake up in the morning and just be grateful to wake up, that's a start every day. And I think if we don't give it the credit it deserves to be able to get through the day with our mind, our heart, and our soul, and all those pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and having conversations and being able to interact with people and choosing who stays in your life, who doesn't bring their anxiety and their stress to you. How many conversations have you had where people are making judgments on what you say and do through COVID, right? Are you allowed to go here and do that? Who goes to the store? When the store is open, how many people rush to go shopping? And then all the judgment about that, right? There's so much judgment. So if we can take a step back in this time and remember that everyone's doing the best they can. And if they're not, it's because maybe they don't know how. And if they don't know how, what can we do for the people around us to help support mental wellness? If you are good at your own life and making good decisions, have conversations with other people and share what you're doing. Maybe it will resonate with them. Maybe they'll make a change one day out of the week. It only takes one little change to keep that change going and build.
I completely agree and concur with everything that you just said. one little change, a little bit at a time. And if you can share that with others and pay it forward, then you're in a better place.
Yeah. A funny one for me is like, I when we first got on this is I really, without my routine, I forget to brush my teeth in the morning because I go down to have my coffee. I drink my coffee. I don't leave. I don't always go back upstairs. So I put a little sign on my coffee maker because in the morning when I go clean it, it goes, "Did you brush your teeth?" And I'm like, "Uh-oh," and I'm back upstairs. But really, like, because I don't have a routine, once I start my day, I don't go back up. And sometimes I go get my coffee earlier than I brush my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that. For me, that's gratitude. I like these teeth. I want to keep them.
Of course.
Yeah, isn't I shouldn't say this. One of the symptoms of COVID, I wonder if it's loss of sense of smell. And anyway, won't go there.
That's another part of the day that many people forget.
Oh my goodness, yes. But to keep it more on point with this conversation, like I think that modeling behaviors for others, to go back to what the two of you are saying, I think that that's really critical, and that we all want to kind of be an ambassador for a better community, and that can be kindness and giving back, and talking about gratitude. And I think those pieces are really key to modeling behaviors in a strong, healthy community that supports one another, and also for self-care when it comes to gratitude, for sure. I just want to raise and make a comment about trauma for a moment. For about 6 months or so, I've been floating in the empty abyss of my mind about this idea of, where does it start and end for the pandemic, and how it's sitting with everyone. And we're kind of, I think I would suggest right now, what we're experiencing is slightly being unhinged, in that we don't feel very settled. And so, to me, this takes on a form of trauma, because literally, people have experienced death close to them. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their families, and they've been disconnected from their friends, and possible opportunities. Now, I think I feel like I've just taken a downturn with this whole positive outlook on things, but I think it's really interesting to kind of explore, how is the dust going to settle psychologically, and how, do we continue to pivot and to cope? I just welcome thoughts or comments.
I think that all those points you said, there is a lot of grief and trauma in people's personal identification of who they are. If you had a partner in the States, you've been separated for a long time. Things change. I really like to look at, what are you doing with that change, and how much can you swallow it and talk about it? So I think a lot of trauma it's really easy to take trauma and just let it sink into your belly and let it live there and not deal with it. It's easy to hide. It's easy to complain and be negative and stay in that state. But then I kind of look at the other side. If there's one sliver that you can hang on to as a person in trauma and say, okay, this really hurts. This is the piece that really throws me off. There's that identification of what makes you go to your negative place. if you can take that learning and do something with it as we come out of this and start to reset and our world turns around in the next couple of months, I think that's where focus can be. So if you know someone in your life, or you yourself feel that level of trauma, that you're just deflated, you don't feel like there's anything you can do, there are a lot of online free programs you can sign up to, cognitive behavior therapy, or find yourself a fitness coach where you can start to exercise and have a conversation online. Join a group just so you're out of your own mind. But I think the big piece for me is identifying that trauma and being able to say to people, like, for me, my kids have cochlear implants and they read lips. They do hear, but not as well as they could with their implants. So masks for them were really difficult. They couldn't go out into the world and be part. They weren't able to keep their jobs. It was just too taxing. So they went home and they were deflated, and we let them sit in that place for a little bit of feeling sorry for themselves, because they have a right to, right? It's a big change in their life. They were thrown off, had to pivot. So they stayed in that place a little bit, and then it was kind of like, okay, are you depressed enough? Is this your level of like low? Do you need to get lower before we start building up? And what are the steps to build? They could be like, one thing at a time. Do you listen to something positive in a day? Do you put on a positive song? Do you do anything to take you out of your mood? I think reaching out, having conversations. Yeah. There are free therapy links. It does take work. Even Facebook. There's a mental health group on Facebook that I'm in, and there are so many individuals supporting each other. One person will put on their feeling and there's 125 responses, and they're all really supportive of one another. So I think if you want to find a way out of your trauma, there are opportunities. I think it's just finding one person to help you. I think for me in the pandemic, alone is the worst trauma. Is hiding your fears and hiding your anxiety. Talk about it, put it out there. This is the time where we share the most common emotions, right?
Yes. Or to add to that, at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm sure everybody's heard of the COVID-19 putting on the weight. And we, like my friend and my sister and I, we put together an accountability group for one another, because we knew we were putting on the weight, but at the same time, we wanted to support each other in our fitness goals to get back on track. So that has become like a major force in us, not only keeping connected, but also us keeping present, because we've become more energized and more empowered. We'd even send pictures of each other after we completed our workout and compliment one another. And then if one didn't do that, it's like, okay, now I got to get up and I got to do something so I can stay involved in this group. Because when we didn't see somebody put a message in, it's like, okay, so you're part of the club. Where's your workout for the day? Where's your picture? So we can see that you did something. And I think that has helped me and it's helped them, because we started this last year, May, and we're still talking in this group about, staying active and getting our daily exercises, because that is one thing that we can control. Yes, we could connect on eating and baking those cookies and baking those cakes, but at the same time, we pivoted and we changed, because, our health is wealth. And now we're exercising and getting active and staying connected.
That's so beautiful. I mean, feeling like a social connection, I think, is such a critical and necessary common theme that we could seek out. As those are amazing stories. And I would say how I would add to that is, just extending out in terms of relationships. And I would say, obviously we're not as in touch with as many people for the most part. Um, but those that are important to us, and that create space for us as well. I've benefited from deepening those relationships, and that's been such a satisfying feeling. It's been with some of my family members, and which I'm fortunate to have that they have their health, and so I'm really really grateful for that. There's one of my longtime friends has a recurrence of a health condition, so I'm sending out some positive, um, you know, messages the best I can at this moment that things will be well again. So, I think that relationships are key. And then also just to tag on to bring it back to what we were talking about before, and just kind of modeling and seeking out guides, mentors, spiritual leaders, teachers, if I didn't already say that, and trying to establish a connection with somebody who can kind of, help guide us a little bit and kind of be that, little bit of a guardian angel almost in a sense. So yeah, those are some thoughts on that. And so here's sort of the other piece that I know that we wanted to touch on is, Shawna, you have this incredible psychotherapy practice that you're building up, and then there's Karma Cares, and you mentioned your two incredible children before. In your previous career as a special educator, working with, I'm not sure what the correct term is, mentally.
I had deaf and hard of hearing.
Thank you.
I was a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. So my students wore technology, and they all used oral, like communication. They were in regular classrooms for most of my students were in regular classrooms.
So your two children now, cochlear implants, if I'm saying the word correctly,
Yeah.
Hard of hearing.
Yeah.
And now we're wearing masks, so you don't get to see my lips moving. So imagine what that's like for them. Mm-hmm. And then you have also what's truly inspiring is your Karma Cares. Mm-hmm. And please tell us all about that.
Oh, my Karma Club. My new one is Karma Club.
Karma Club. So autism is a bit of a focus for you.
Karma. I also run a camp for teens with autism called Karma Country Camp. So I'm all about karma. I've been so lucky in my life that despite the traumas that continue to visit me and throw me off balance, I have an amazing community of individuals that support me. I've learned in my life that because I'm a giver, it's really essential to also ask. I needed support, and I was so grateful in this time to be able to use my support. I've rented a house, and I'm hopefully, with COVID restrictions, I have a space where young adults or adults going through transitions can come and feel safe. There's a big area where you can sit and chill. You can meet like-minded people. We will be doing group therapy. So that will all be launching in about a month. And depending on the rules, indoors or outdoors, we'll be able to do group therapy in person with masks, depending on the vaccines. I'm always waiting for government regulations. I have a big outdoor space as well that either of you want to bring your fitness stuff here and run any groups. I've two incredible coaches, a child life specialist, a social worker, all joining my practice so that we can be we want to we want to be able to offer anyone who comes our way the support that they need. My ADHD was out of control over COVID. I'm used to moving and going, so being in one space for such a long time. So I set up stations around my house so I can move. And again, that whole self-care piece with ADHD and feeling overwhelmed, underwhelmed, your emotions are way stronger than they were if you're outside in the world. So through all of that, I've recognized how, as adults, we have a lot of skills in place. Hopefully you've been able to put them in place to deal with your own mental wellness and your finances. But then there's that whole group of 20 to 30 where they still live at home. They may not be adults yet. They're in their career. They're trying to network and make connections through school. And now all of a sudden they have no jobs. They're online their whole lives and they're networking. So their depression and universities with all the exams online, the proctoring of exams, that was huge stress. Assignments, I coached. I also do coaching. So between the psychotherapy, the coaching, I had a few clients at university who would do 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, just to get moving every day and to stay motivated to do their assignments, to get up and get going. You're in your dorm room. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's no social interaction. How do you put that in your head and be motivated to do your day when you don't feel like there's anything at the other end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Internships, even where you go into offices and you start to build your life, you're now doing from home.
Exactly.
I can't bring my dynamic personality on a Zoom call with 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I get so intimidated, or I'm like, take my turn, pay attention. I zone out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, there's so many negatives of this year. I mean, I can name you 100 negatives of this year. The positives are never going to outweigh the negatives. They're just not. But can you find one positive to attach to? One to keep going forward? I don't know. I think we got off that question, but there's so much emotion tied up for me in all of this. I don't even know where to go sometimes. But I know that the accountability, like you said, Amanda, that I have about 6 accountability groups because I need full accountability. It's so easy to lie in bed and do nothing. It's easy to stay in my pajamas all day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to build my life. And even though the world is changing, I think it's important to change with it. Sometimes we don't know how. Ask the questions, have conversations.
Exactly.
We learn from each other so much more.
Yeah. And it's important to, like, with everything, you have to adapt with change. There's no way around it. Because what if this is a reality for the next 5 years? We're just going to have to find more positives out of this than rather just being fully negative on the situation. But yeah. But I also use those times, like you said staying in bed. Like, yes, I'm in school right now. And it, like you mentioned, it is hard to stay motivated because you have all these assignments to do. And the tests, they do make harder because you have your notes. People have their books and notes in front of them when you're not being observed through a webcam. But when I do get that downtime, I'm like, you know what? Let me go take a nap. Because when will I ever be able to take a nap during the middle of the day while in school or while at work?
Right.
And then wake up and feel refreshed, and then I can complete the assignment. So I choose that. Choose where to pick and choose where you want to see your positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Look on things. Yeah.
Yeah. Think about all the times we're not commuting. Some people get 2 to 3 hours extra a day now. Are you using it valuably? Right? I don't think that's a word, valuable. Are you? It is now. Right? Are you making use of that time?
Right.
If you never had time to exercise before, are you exercising? So I'm a gym person. I love the gym. I used to be a fitness instructor. I love teaching my classes, the energy. in COVID, it was really hard. I didn't have the space to do the things I wanted. So I took my 5 favorite exercises. I put one in every room, and every hour after one of my clients, I would stop and do 10 minutes. 10 minutes of squats, 10 minutes of lunges, 10 minutes of push-ups, 10 minutes of planks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, I was able to stay in shape without doing, the amount of cardio or weight training as I used to. While the weather was really bad and I didn't have space, I used my hallway in the condo, walking lunges. I ran the stairs. You make do, but I wasn't good at an hour workout, so I did like 5 10-minute workouts.
And that's the best way to fit it in.
Yeah. And it kept my body also. How many hours do you sit in a chair now compared
Mm-hmm.
to the past, where you'd move, you'd get in your car, you'd walk to your office, you'd go say hi to someone, you'd go run an errand. We sit. If you ever count your sitting hours now, it's pretty scary.
It is. It definitely is. Even after, so the retail environment opened up like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've been working as an associate in a store. And to stand for like 6 hours, I'm like, oh my gosh, my back muscles. I've lost them, even though I'm exercising at home, but just to stand for hours on end. And then the first few days it was rough, but then my body got used to it. Yeah. But yeah, that is what you have to preserve. Yeah. You have to maintain walking, even if it's walking, if you're not exercising, just walking, period. Mm-hmm. So you're standing upright, because being in the sedentary sitting position is not benefiting us at all.
No, our stamina for movement.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't move so fast.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, there is a whole group of people, like all the frontline workers and the teachers. I mean, kudos to all of them, and my heart goes out to everything they've endured in this year, because
mm-hmm.
they're dealing with struggles that we can't even. Me personally, I mean, I hear it, but I can't identify with all those feelings every day. Imagine sitting in a classroom where all these children are at their desks in masks, no group work, no touching each other's equipment, no ability to move around and release their energy. That energy in a classroom's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Insane. There is, and then those kids bring that home to their parents, right? And your parents are stressed from sitting at their desks all day and working, and the kids. So what does 6 o'clock look like in a house where everyone's been sitting with, keeping themselves, in these little spaces? I always encourage people, like, just have a pillow fight. Like, just dance, put on some music and walk around your house. Do something together in movement. Because if one person starts, others will follow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Silver lining again. I go back to the silver lining all the time. It's just who I've been. And the whole part about trauma, also going back to the trauma. Anything that makes you feel like you can't get through a day could be your trauma. It just is. It doesn't have to be huge trauma. It could be anything that throws you off is yours. And that trauma, when it sits in your belly, starts to grow. Having conversations, expressing it, like you said, writing in a journal. I have a hard time writing now, because now that in this bit, like, I'm taking notes all the time.
Right.
I videotape myself. I talk to my phone. So I either videotape it and I just use my voice. Sometimes I'll make a full video, or sometimes I just put my AirPod in and talk to my phone, and it types it all out. Anything just to get it out of your system, right? Just don't keep it inside, because the more we keep inside, the more our bellies start to hurt, and the more that it starts to hurt, it attracts all the negativity, and that's where we get sick.
Exactly. And just like with my accountability group with my sister and my friend, sometimes we say, I didn't feel like doing the workout today, or I binged, I ate like cake and chips. And I'm like, well, yeah, we all have those days, and you will have them, but at least you're honest about it, and you have self-compassion for yourself, and you're not running a guilt trip on yourself.
Yeah, I like those 2 words.
Yeah.
Self-compassion and honesty.
Yeah.
I think exactly. our 3 are, and thoughtfulness. I think compassion, honesty, and thoughtfulness are 3 key words to be able to move through the next 5 months of uncertainty. What does the summer look like? Will the world feel more secure? Will travel start again? Will we be able to see our family and friends openly? Will jobs go back? Will there be jobs for all the university students who graduate in a month? Right? Will summer camps be able to run? Those are all always uncertain questions. Last summer I wasn't able to rent a space. We had a space in a school for the summer camp and we weren't able to run it, but I ended up just popping up a tent in a park. And the kids came from 10 to 2 because I had teens with autism, and a lot of them don't have their own friends. They don't have a social group to depend on. So we ended up creating a space where they can come and just chill and be outside of their house and have a different experience. We went for walks, we played in the water parks, we just did different things, but we made it work. Just about being creative.
That's the truth. Making it work and being creative. That holds for anything.
Right. Thinking outside the box. And if you struggle with doing that, put something out there and say, hey, I need help. I bet you there's lots of people that will want to give you opinions. Facebook is great for that. You can invite as many opinions as you want.
Amazing stuff. This has been really, we're getting a little light on time, but are there any, just like how this has come a bit 360 in terms of anxiety and trauma, youth, autism, and the challenges of special populations, the challenges of frontline workers, that, as you said so beautifully, Shawna, is like we can't even begin to imagine the experience there, not walking in their shoes. So it's just been a really great opportunity for us to just try to put some stuff out there, and hopefully there's just one small nugget that people might latch onto in terms of coping with their anxiety. The two of you and Shawna, with your ideas from your practice, have outlined so many possibilities for what to do with our energy, what to do with a lack of structure, and try to do a reset every day as we try to, muster our way through the balance of this period that we're going through in history. And, with any luck, we can sort of tie it up in a little bow at some point and say, here's my time capsule from, 2020. I was going to start an Instagram account that was going to be called, and because everybody was going to call themselves a couple of years ago, it was going to be so trendy to say 2020 vision, right?
Right.
So I started looking at Instagram accounts that I could start, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start 2020 sight, because vision's not available.
Right.
Well, guess what? Sight wasn't available. So all I had was sigh. There was no T on the end of sight. So I have the Instagram account 2020 sigh.
This was a good year to sigh.
Wow, who knew?
Take a lot of, if I could put anything out there, is breathing. Like, we forget to breathe. We take shallow breaths daily. When stress and anxiety come into our lives, we tend to hold our breath or go more shallow. And sometimes just that, putting reminders on your phone to breathe consciously and mindfully for 5 minutes, or for like 30 seconds, 60 seconds every hour even, changes the rhythm of your body. So breathing is essential. Even reaching out to any type of life coach, therapist of any sort, have one conversation just to check in and think, am I telling myself good things? Am I in a good headspace? Checking in with any type of professional, even your doctor. There are many practices that have sliding scales that you can find. There's BetterHelp and Bounce Back, or some online free sites that you can check into. Sometimes just doing an assessment online, because 2020 is a sigh. It's like, what happened? How are we here? How did we get here? Like, what am I doing now? That is really that question so often. So check in, do something good for yourself. The same way you get a gym membership, you go on a diet, you make new friends, you join a new activity. Check in with your mental health. Find one person who is a professional who has some training that you align with, and just have a check-in just to see, am I okay? You don't have to do a deep intake. You can go for one session or two and just say, like, help me out here. Am I on the right path? Do I need to look at something? Do you see something that I don't see? Things like that, I think, will put us on a better trajectory going forward, right? I think that's important. I like your 2020 side. I think we can really promote that one. Do you have a lot of people following you?
Well, I'm hardly on it, to be honest, but maybe I'll go on it a bit more now.
I've had to draw away from social media over this time. I really struggled with people's opinions and judgments and not interacting. I didn't want to get mad or feel angry at others, judging others, or political. The whole Trump, was a whole other arena. So, and anxiety right now has become a tag word. I think everyone has anxiety. So my heart goes out to the people who had it before. But I think if we look at it now, that anxiety is all part of us. If you have your stuff together, maybe your anxiety was buried deep inside you. But if any of this year had an effect on you, your anxiety has come up to the surface, and now you're looking at ways to deal with it. So anxiety is real for everyone. And I think recognizing that and really looking at what you can do for anxiety, where the mindfulness is. There's mindful eating, mindful breathing, mindful sitting, mindful walking. All of it is just checking in with yourself.
Amanda, any closing thoughts that you want to tag on?
Well, to add to both of your points, I definitely believe there's no harm in checking in with yourself and making sure you're on the right path. But at the same time, like with social media, I could understand people needing to take a break from that, because we get so consumed in comparing ourselves to others too, or they're starting their new journey or their new business, or they're on some new track, and sometimes we get caught up in comparing ourselves to each other. So it's okay if we haven't reached that step or we're not there yet. And I think sometimes people put too much pressure on themselves to try to be at the same level as everybody else, but everybody's path is going to be different. Nobody's going to walk the universal same path, same line.